Okay, friends, this next discourse is on the subject of Kundalini. Kundalini is a Sanskrit term, and it refers to coiled, or kunda, or means to coil. And it refers to a snake. And the snake is the common metaphor in Sanskrit for the Kundalini. Now, it so happens that the term Kundalini does not date back that far in Sanskrit literature. Before the term Kundalini was in use, there was an earlier term, and it's called vîrya. And in fact, that same term appears in the Pali sutras. And so it turns out that Patanjali and Siddhartha Gautama both used that term, and they use it in very similar ways. Most scholars translate vîrya or viriya, depending on what language you're speaking in. They tend to interpret it as energy. Now, to me as a contemplative, I think that energy is really not a very useful translation of the term. It just so happens that vîrya or viriya actually is related to our term virtue. In fact, they have common roots. And if we look back in early Christian literature, we find that the term virtue is not just about being virtuous, meaning not having bad habits, but virtue is also in fact used as a kind of spiritual power, that objects could be imbued with virtue, or virtue could be transferred from one person to another, and let's say in the form of healing. So that's an aspect of Kundalini that I believe, is the important thing to get at in our discussion of the contemplative life that produces the fruit of the contemplative life, or the samana Phala, in that a contemplative can have the sensation of powerful energies moving in the body. And those powerful energies begin to move noticeably in the first jhana, but it might be subtle. And as one goes deeper into the ecstasies, the first jhana or the first ecstasy, it's not so strong. But in the second ecstasy or jhana, it might be a little stronger, and in the third it's usually stronger still, and in the fourth usually people describe it as a powerful sensation. They feel as though they're going to explode or burst into flames. So these are the kinds of experiences around Kundalini. Now, there's a very unfortunate book written by a Hindu guru by the name of Gopi Krishna. It was written in the 50s. And his entire description of Kundalini described neurotic phenomena that occurs to a contemplative. Now, this is not Kundalini. To me, this is a serious mistake in the whole idea of Kundalini. And there is certainly a dark night of the soul that a mystic can experience on their trajectory to becoming a mystic, but conflating it with Kundalini or virtue, to me, is a serious mistake in understanding the trajectory of the contemplative life. So anyway, back to Kundalini. It can be experienced, as I said, as a powerful energy. Some people might feel as though they're, in a sense, frozen in place, and they might feel their spine elongated and their body, in a sense, frozen in posture, and that's perfectly okay to experience. I've had the experience many times, and in my experience, you just ride it out and it'll get very blissful. If you fight with it, then it can become unblissful or unpleasant, and that is the Gopi Krishna experience. He apparently never gave in to the Kundalini. He always fought with it and made it a psychotic state for himself. So the overall message that I would like to impart is, as people become mystics and start having these mystical experiences, the solution is not to fight with it. The solution is just to ride it out. One is not going to die. One is not going to become neurologically damaged. The experience will come to an end, and then one will be able to gain information from the experience, and one may find that it was so intensely pleasant that it might have been just on the edge of painful, but that's okay, because oftentimes the mystic ends up craving the experience and wants to experience it over and over and over again, and that is their inducement to practice meditation every day, so they can experience these ecstatic states every time they meditate. And if you become a skilled contemplative, you can experience these ecstatic states every time you meditate. But one must become a rigorous contemplative to be able to do that. Thank you.